Welcome to Self Care You podcast. I'm your host, Sharon, the number one self carepreneur in the world. And this podcast is the intersection of self care, advocacy, and compassion for self caregivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so, with this episode, what we will talk about is unpacking the past. How your childhood experiences shape your present. Unpacking the past. Let's start with that. Sometimes when we're talking about the past, we're talking about, especially if it's associated with trauma, and which I do understand when it's associated, especially with the bit T trauma that no one wants to talk about. But I'm going to say this. Oh, there are very few people that I have found, including myself, and which is something that I am working on. And I'm not even sure I even realized it until I started digging deep and diving in more of myself. In that, it's not just unpacking the past, it's really almost anything that is uncomfortable, and just realize that it's the sensations that come through your body. And anytime you feel something, majority of the time, if the full sensation and emotion come through, pretty much lasts about 90 seconds. But sometimes the sensation can be so strong that it can be too much. And most of us have never really learned how to truly identify what that is and to regulate our emotions. And so I wanted to say that because this is how, when it comes to unpacking our past, because they bring up emotions within you. And so, not to say that anything was good. I'm not saying that, okay? So do not. I'm not saying that. Pretty much what I'm saying is that if you're able to at least think about it, to at least see it, and allow that emotion to come through, most of the time it gets released. Now, the other thing that I'm going to say about that, sometimes some experiences can be too strong, or should I say, so strong that releasing it may not come, like all at one time. And then the other thing is you can intentionally and do everything that you can to release something or to work through. I don't want to use to release and work through. And I say work through because, again, it's not always in one setting. And so, in saying all of that, you're like, Sharon, what does this have to do with self care? What does this have to do with me in my life? I am good. Mm-mm. Because the past has a way to either seep its way into your present, seep its way into your future, or just completely explode. Just completely. So, this is the reason why it's so important that self care. Remember the four pillars of self care? It's that self awareness. That is the largest one. This is how you live because it has almost everything to do with you. And then with the other things, I don't know if I want to call them tools. That's why I call them pillars. In that, the sitting in silence, the deep rest, and the movement and action. All of those play a part into your self awareness, and they play a part into your past and having that self regulation. And when you are able to regulate your emotions when the past come, then you are able to pretty much reframe and think about and have insight and reflections about the past. And this is why it's so important, because if not, there are things in which you are, that your past is literally in the driver's seat. I'll use myself as an example. Again, you've heard me say it before. When it comes to my father, I grew up in a single parent household. Didn't have a problem with that. Not at all. Always said I never had any ill feelings about my dad. Never did, never will. However, what I have discovered, especially once I started going deep within myself, didn't come to me all at one time. It's bits and pieces that kind of goes back to what I was saying previously, in which everything cannot be worked out in one time, and sometimes it just doesn't unfold with that because we don't have a memory. Because remember, as children, as a child, during those formative years, you don't have the language, and then not only that, I would say parents are a little better at it. And again, it's different time zone, nothing, with our parents, let's say like from the 70s and 80s and the 90s, in that I kind of call it was in survival mode. It was make sure you have a place to stay. And so in saying that, in that, what I had discovered within myself is that, oh, so there was a part of me, I would say, that was waiting, because I can remember it was after a breakup and kind of like doing the healing process, something, and this is how I discovered the what is it called, the fatherless daughter syndrome, because that's not me, but something just kept saying, go back and look at it, Sharon, go back and look at it. I cannot identify with the first information that I saw, like on Oprah. I couldn't identify with those ladies. They really suffer, and at least in my mind, you know I didn't go through life suffering. I didn't have the consciousness of that. But what I noticed is that behaviorally, and I guess you could say there's like invisible wounds that you have. And so, in saying that, in that, um, the thing that came up for me, oh, I was waiting because I realized that I would just say somewhere in that particular relationship, and I would say you may have recently heard me talk about an experience that I had, and then it's kind of like, despite of what was going on in that experience, there had to be a part of me that was waiting. And again, it's the people that's in front of you, they're mirrors. Just remember that. Just remember that. Even though I always say too, it doesn't excuse any behaviors that someone may have. However, you still will need to work through yours. So, in saying that, this is why we need to unpack it more intentionally, not when something pops up, not when something happens, because really by that time it's too late. Damage has been done. Where you may have caused damage, someone else have caused damage, someone caused damage to me, I may have caused damage to others, because of the fact we're in the past most of the time unconsciously living in the present, being in the present, and we think it's reality, and it's not always reality. It's almost like a puppet. you know it's almost like your past is a puppet, or you're the puppet to your past, should I say. So this is why it's so important for you to be able to go deep within. And there's so many different ways of doing that. Again, the 4 pillars of self-care is how you can get there. And so one of the things that I have done, in which I guess you could say some of it has already been there, but I would say I'm advertising it more now, in a sense, but this is new, in that it is Fortitude Spirit Ritual. And what it is that it's for business owners, entrepreneurs, and those who are in leadership roles. And what it is that it's different activities. It can be a mindfulness thing, it may be yoga, it may be more of movement, But pretty much what it does, it allows you, I guess you could say, to have different parts of yourself and challenging yourself. And so when you're able to challenge yourself, it's not only going to help you for future adversity, but it also allows you to work through your past. And it's kind of one of those things, it's like how wonderful therapy can be, but sometimes it still may not get to the deep deep wound, or if it does, it's usually the different modalities of therapy. It's not just the talk therapy. It's usually when it's combined with yoga, meditation. I would say mindfulness, and we always say yoga and meditation, which meditation is a form or a type of yoga, meaning that yoga is an aspect of things. Anyway. And saying that, and that when you're able, and this is why self care is so important, so that you can address yourself in the different ways that you can. You may go to one person and they may be able to um, um, address you in this way. You may go somewhere else, you may go somewhere else. And that is okay to do that, because it's good to have different perspective. Sometimes some may say, "Oh, this is not my cup of tea," and that's okay too. And it's okay to stick with something, but I will also say to be able to really look at different things. And so, going back of everything in that, unpack your past so that you would not, so that your past would not be in your future, would not be in your present, because a lot of times our childhood is in the driver's seat, and you don't want that, because it can, we say about self-sabotaging. That's where self-sabotaging is coming from. Not all of it comes from your childhood, but it's kind of like it can be an innocent, it can be really an innocent of an experience that you had, and it got locked in, and it's how you view the world. And so this is another reason, another way of unpacking is to have community, of, you could say, groups or community um, circles that you are able to participate in, because what it allows you to do, just by you being in the room, you're able to hear other people's story. One, you're like, okay, I'm not the only one, but above that is that there's usually a resolution around it. And so it can bring up something that you may not even know. Because this is how I discovered things about myself, about my gifts, about, do I need healing from something? And so this is why it's so important to not isolate yourself as much, because there is a world of healing in different places, and to be able to have different conversations with people as well. But the main thing is to have conversations with yourself, is to be honest and true with yourself, meaning, like, if there's something in your past that you are aware of that hurts, and I would say, even if there's something in your past, kind of like me, going through life thinking that the only impact that not having a father in my life has been to be ambitious and to be able to go into the world and to be able to be successful and to be able to achieve things. But to be honest, I never realize of, shall I say, the unpleasantness of what it has done. One thing I can say is I'm glad that it has finally come out because, with experiences that I've had, and again, not painting anyone in any different in a certain way, because we all come with it. Some people will say, "Oh, I don't have any baggage." I will probably have been one of those persons that would say that, but now I'm like, "Oh, wow!" We all have our little quirks and things like that. And so, in saying all of that, for you to take care of yourself is for you to be able to unpack your past, because there are things that is in your childhood that is shaping your present. And there are memories, there are emotions, and there are lessons that you have. But the main thing is, even though there are memories, emotions, and lessons, how have you evolved? How has it made you better? Once you become aware, once you have that revelation, that aha moment, what have you done? And it's kind of one of those things, because I don't want to say, because it's not really it's a behavior, it's an action thing to a certain extent, but it's more of who have you become in a good way. Who have you become where you're able to use that wisdom? And it's kind of one of those things, it's like when you get it, you get it. It's not like you can pinpoint it and say, "Oh, I'm changed." And behaviorally, people can change, but the thing is, have your mind, have your spirit, have your soul being able to adapt and adjust, of course, for the betterment of yourself, so that you can be a betterment to the world as well. So, in saying all of that, make sure you go to, I'm about to say go to my website. And when I think about it, I don't think that it is there. But go to my Instagram page or my Facebook page so that you can register for Fortitude Spirit Rituals. It's on Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. And so make sure you register for that. Invest in yourself, because the more that you invest in yourself, it just allows you to be a better person. It allows you to see the world in a different way. It allows you to move in a different way. It allows you to be in a different way. This is what self-care is all about. It's all about you. And it's okay, because when you feed into you, everything around you is going to be better, because you're better. So thank you for listening to this Self Care You podcast.